You're going to disrupt your business model, you're going to change it, you're going to reduce your cost, you're going to expedite your transactions, and you're going to continue to inspire confidence because you will build that on the basis of an existing backbone, which is your bank and the confidence relationship that you've established with your customers. So that's where I see changes happening now. If you think of Circle and Ripples and all those, that's where they are active and helpful.
The first one's for you. IMF. Do you see IMF holding crypto assets in the future? I did not put that up there.
Remember, I'm from the legal department. I'm supposed to be very conservative about these things. I don't want to go into great details about
Maybe
the IMF.
I should take what the IMF is going to do. I think we stunned Ross into silence with that one.
For that to happen, okay, under the current legal framework, some country would have to use a crypto asset as its currency.
Which goes to the next question that was on the list, actually. Will central banks issue digital currency become a reality in the next few years?
Well, again, there's a lot of work being done by a number of central banks.
So today, the dominance of the dollar makes the US the world's banker. As such, it enjoys exorbitant privileges, in the words of Valéry Giscard d'Estaing, but it also bears exorbitant duties. Directly and indirectly, it's the dominant supplier of safe and liquid assets to the rest of the world. It is the issuer of a dominant currency of trade invoicing. It is the dominant force in global monetary policy, and it is the main lender of last resort. And these features actually interact and reinforce each other. That the dollar dominates in trade invoicing makes it more attractive to borrow in dollars. And this in turn makes it more attractive to price in dollars. That the US is the main lender of last resort makes it safer to borrow in dollars. And this in turn increases the responsibility of the US in times of crisis. So all these factors solidify the position, the special position of the US in the current system. At the same time, not all is well in this dollar-centric international monetary system. There's a growing and seemingly insatiable global demand for safe assets. And the resulting global safe asset shortage has brought safe interest rate downs to historically low levels and has really catalyzed very serious and very persistent challenges to macroeconomic stability by increasing the probability of hitting the zero lower bound, and to financial stability by pushing investors to lever up, to take risks, to reach for yield. It had also created the conditions of what some people called a new Triffin dilemma. So the only way over the long run for the US to accommodate this growing global demand for safe assets is to stretch its fiscal and financial capacity, to strain the trust that investors confer on the dollar, and to risk creating instability and crisis.
I hope Sarah's sitting down because he is calling for the creation of a new virtual currency that could ease the reliance of the world on the US dollar, which he says creates some of the problems that we have today. I can explain more of that in a second. He also says the UK outlook, hinges critically on Brexit. Sarah, he is pointing out that, for example, half of all international trade is priced in dollars, but the U.S. that's 5 times greater than the U.S. contribution to world output, along with 2/3 of world securities priced in dollars. And he says the problem there is that U.S. interest rate policy, U.S. exchange rate policy becomes exported to other parts of the world. And he says that is not the optimal way to run things. He acknowledges a long way off, but it's a pretty radical
Where did that come from,
proposal
Steve?
from
Is he
a
trying
guy
to get
who's
kicked out of Jackson Hole?
No, but I think what he's dealing with, Sarah, is this idea of why are we having so many problems related to the U.S. being strong but the rest of the world being weak? And he says that's because so much of the world is priced in dollars. So the theory of flexible exchange rates resolving these imbalances is not working. You know, Sarah, this is not the first time this idea has been talked about or floated. There's the special drawing rights from the IMF. But anyway, there's the special drawing rights from the IMF.
IMF. Do you see IMF holding crypto assets in the future? I did not put that up there.
almost like a mic drop, and you said we need to go to a global virtual currency. It's a 23-page speech. It's very heavy. Give us the thumbnail. Why can't...
I want to know, did you just read the conclusion of the speech, Steve?
No, I read 14 pages,
okay,
and then I jumped to the
okay.
conclusion.
So what's the point?
Give us the thumbnail. Why can't the dollar be the global currency?
Okay, the dollar is the global currency. We know that. The challenge is that the U.S. share of the global economy has been reducing. The dollar's share of payments, not just financial assets, but payments, a lot of payments between countries that have nothing to do with the U.S. are in dollars. And what happens in situations like we're in today, where the U.S. economy, to its credit, is relatively strong, is doing better, and the Fed has been doing the right thing, which is, they've adjusted policy, they tightened policy as it was strengthening. Now they're making, the Fed is doing the right thing, but they have adjusted and policy is relatively strong. That means rest of world policy is tighter than it needs to be, and that feeds back on the U.S. economy in a way that ultimately slows this economy. And it leads to a substandard outcome. And in a world where you only have limited policy space, it's a dangerous place to be. And so the trade issues we're talking about are reinforced by the structure of the monetary system. Now, I mean, you've asked a big question, so just give me a second to, but now the issue is, you don't just jump to something new overnight. And what we want in a multipolar world, I think we'd agree that we've got the European engine, we've got the Chinese engine, we've got the US engine of this economy. Multipolar world, you need a multipolar currency. The question is, how do you get there? And I laid out some ideas of how you would get there.
And the bottom line, Governor, is that all of the pressure on the difference in growth around the world would not fall on the dollar exchange rate.
Yeah.
It would be spread out if it was a global basket of currencies.
It would be spread out as a global basket of currencies. It's better for the system as a whole. It's better. It raises that equilibrium level of interest rates.
Right.
It gives central banks more policy, but it gives people who are watching greater returns on their savings.
Well, certainly,
we work with 90 banks globally. We have 15 in production deployments. It has helped the organization become enterprise grade, to the point where, I don't know if you guys saw the Bank of England announcement today, but Bank of England is using our technology to POC payments internationally using Ripple solution and IOP.
Ripple has from the earliest days invested in engaging regulators. And when we go to Washington, D.C., we go to other regulatory bodies around the world and explain, we aren't circumventing a KYC check, a know your customer check. We aren't circumventing an AML, anti-money laundering check. We aren't circumventing BSA. There's lots of three-letter acronyms, I'll stop there. But look, the Bank of England is a paid customer of Ripple's.
Times at which a dominant currency was displaced, it was always a bit of an accident that brought it. It's not like a smooth trend that eventually brings it to parity. Something happens in the world, it's a crisis, it's a war, and that catalyzes a major change. So
over the last years, there has been this process of increased digitalization with crypto assets, stable coins, central bank digital currencies. The pandemic put this on steroids, so now we see a much faster advancement in that direction. We used to say the future is digital. Now the future is here, bringing new sources of productivity, growth, and jobs. Let me conclude. In the past 7 weeks, the world has experienced a second major crisis, a war on top of a pandemic.
Multipolar world, you need a multipolar currency. The question is, how do you get there?
I think when you look at the future of money, I think it's very important to look at where we are and where we came from. And so over 20 years ago, the dollar now below 60% central bank reserves globally. And where that's going is that most countries, even allied countries, are doing stress tests in their central banks about the dollar, especially post the actions in Ukraine and Russia.
Multipolar world, you need a multipolar currency. The question is, how do you get there?
Формируется новая реальность, когда однополярный мир безвозвратно уходит в прошлое, и когда складывается многополярная реальность. Это объективный процесс, его невозможно остановить. Реальность, в которой будет не одна держава править, а в которой необходимо договариваться между всеми ключевыми государствами, которые сегодня имеют решающее влияние на мировую экономику, на мировую политику, и которые при этом, осознавая свое особое положение, обеспечивают базовые принципы Устава ООН, которые начинаются с основополагающего принципа суверенное равенство государств. Никто на этой земле не должен рассматриваться как второстепенный игрок. Все равны.